Okay, this will be part one of 1D notes. We have two different formulas that you really need to make sure you get down and get down correctly. I've listed the first one here for distance. Basically, in the last lesson, in 1C, we talked about distance and midpoint on a number line. This is going to be midpoint and distance on a graph, or what we call a coordinate plane, which is like this, where you have your x and your y. Okay, so we have those points that we're trying to find the distance between the points, and then we're trying to find the midpoint between those points. We have an ordered pair for each of the ends. So when we say x sub 2 and x sub 1, doesn't matter which one's 1 or 2, but if I put 2 first, for the x, I gotta put 2 first for the y. So it doesn't matter which one is which. There's lots of different steps in here. You can see we've got a big square root over everything. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We've got subtraction inside the parentheses. We've got a square outside the parentheses, and we've got to add between those two. So several different steps. None of them are hard, but you just got to know what the order is going to be. So we're going to do one together, and then I want you to pause it, do the other two, and then come back and see how I explain it. So when I'm looking at this first one here, you can see I've looked over on my graph, and the 2 points here are -5, 3, and -2, -3. Okay, so what I want to do is find the distance using this formula between these 2 points. You'll see on a graph, I can't even count because each of these little pieces is different sizes, and there's just no way you could get an accurate count. So in my formula, I am going to put what are called like just the ones that are always going to be there. So I'm always going to have parentheses with a minus in between them. There's always going to be a squared out here. There's always going to be a plus here. And then same thing here. If I've done that, then all I have to do is fill in, oops, that's not going to look good, these 4 spots. Okay? Because everything else will always be standard. It'll always be there. But these 4 spots now are going to be these 4 numbers. So x minus x. So I'm just going to start with this one over here. So here's my x. Put a little dot by it. I'm going to make that -2. Here's my x. I'm going to put that one -5. Watch your signs. Over here, I'm going to do the y's. Now, because I started with this one, I'm going to go here with this y, -3 minus 3. So all that is substitution. Okay? So the first step is substitution. Or substitute. Sure. Order of operations says I got to do it in parentheses first, so next I'm going to subtract. So this is where most students mess up because there's lots of positive and negatives. -2 minus -5 is 3. So that's going to be 3 squared. Here's my plus. Now I'm going to work out these parentheses. -3 minus 3 is -6 squared. Just bringing that one down. So that was doing subtraction inside. My next order of operations is to square. So 3 times 3 is 9. -6 times -6 is positive 36. These two, when you square something, they'll always be positive. I'm going to come out here just so I have a little bit more room. So, rewriting that piece there. Now, I just have to add those two together. So, my next step is to add. So, 9 plus 36 is 45. Now, if you say that this segment is square root of 45, that is exact. but most people don't know, like, I'm going to go run square root of 45 miles. That's not very logical to most people. So, using what I showed you in class, how to use the calculator square root button, I'm going to put that into the calculator, and I get about, make that a wiggle, equals 6.7. Okay, so that step was using the square root button. So just as a quick review for those steps, it's a lot of things. None of those are hard. You've done all of these before, but it's just a matter, you just got to take your time, because the signs will just ruin you if you're not careful. The distance formula is the formula to use to find the distance between 2 points on a coordinate graph. I use this formula, plugging in the 4 numbers that I need from those 2 endpoints. So first thing I'm going to do is substitute those in for the x's and the y's. Then I'm going to use ordered operations. I'm going to subtract within the parentheses. I'm going to square those 2 answers. I'm going to add those 2 answers, and then I'm going to use my square root button on my calculator to say the distance or the length of this segment is about 6.7. Okay? Now, I want you to pause the video. I want you to do number 2 and number 3, okay, the best that you can, and then come back and I will go through them with you. All right, so here is number 2. Just show it all there for you. They give you the 2 points at -4, 1, and 3, -1. I've written out my formula. I put in the standard stuff, and then I substituted in place of x, I had a 3 and a -4 right here. In place of y, I had a -1 and a 1, so that goes here. When I go through my next step, I'm going to subtract. Remember what we did up here? When I subtract, I get 7 squared here. When I subtract here, I get -2 squared. Then I'm going to square those two. So 7 squared is 49, -2 squared is 4. Add them together, square root. The distance between A and B, or the length of AB, is about 7.3. I'm going to show this one to you. It's pretty much done the same way as the other ones. Just take a minute to look through it, see if you have questions. Okay, let me know if you have any troubles with those. I'd be glad to help you. Let's finish up this page of notes here with the midpoint formula. So again, if I have a segment like I did up here, how would I find where the midpoint is? Well, the midpoint is like the middle. To find the middle, I find the average. So that's what this formula is showing. If these are my 2 endpoints, x1, y1, x2, y2, I'm going to find the average between the x's. I'm going to add them together and divide by 2. I'm going to find the average of the y's, add them together and divide by 2. You'll notice that I have a point here with a comma between them, okay, because on a graph, I need it to look like this, where the midpoint is going to be an ordered pair, okay? So let's take a look at what that is going to look like for you. So they give me segment GH. G on the graph is at 7, -5, and H is at 9, -1. So the formula, this one is add the x's and divide by 2. So if I look at the x's, and again, it doesn't matter which one I start with, the 7 plus the 9 divided by 2. I do the same thing with the y's. Add them and divide by 2. So -5 plus -1 divided by 2. Here I'm going to get 8. Here, when I work that out, I get -3. So my midpoint is at 8, -3. All right, you pause and do the last one, and then come back. Okay, on the last one, they want me to find the midpoint between these 2 ordered pairs. So I'm going to find the average between the x's of -7 and 3, comma, going to find the average of the y's, which is 4 and -4. When I do that and work them out, my midpoint turns out to be at -2, 0. Again, notice how I'm symbolizing that. It is a point with a comma between them. This is my x value and this is my y value. So we're going to end part 1 there, and we'll come back for part 2.